Good morning, friends. Meteorologist Ashley Ruiz here. The time is 10:13, so if you see this in your timeline a little later, it is Wednesday morning, June 3rd. So there may be new information if you see this a little later in your timeline, your news feed. And you can always find the latest from the National Hurricane Center right here on Facebook, also on brproud.com. So we will get started talking all things tropics and of course what we're expecting today before this is all said and done. So we'll go ahead and start with our weather headlines. So Tropical Storm Cristobal made landfall in Mexico a little earlier this morning. Latest from the National Weather Service, we now have a flood watch, flash flood watch in effect until Tuesday morning. And I'll break this all down in full detail. All in all, heavy rain is likely this weekend and early week. We could even see some heavy rain today. We have deep tropical moisture in place, and then with some of the sea breezes, marine breezes that begin to pick up this afternoon, we could easily see some heavy rain that could produce 2 to 4 inches per hour. And then over the span of the next 7 days, we can see some very, very heavy rainfall. As for today, our rain chance around 60%, a little higher to our east toward Slidell and then the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And then you can see just varying all across the state of Louisiana. So scattered to numerous showers and storms are likely today. And here is a look at the current flash flood watch that is now in effect through Tuesday morning. The National Weather Service, they are saying 2 to 4 inches per hour will be possible with any thunderstorm or just heavy rain band that we see. And the 7-day rainfall totals could be between 5 and 10 inches or more if we get any of those stronger thunderstorms or slow-moving thunderstorms. And this all includes potentially with the Tropical Storm Cristobal. So as for the Weather Prediction Center, this is something called QPF. This is the 7-day future rainfall totals indicating that some very, very heavy rain is expected along the northern Gulf Coast. Where the axis of the heaviest rain sets up, something we're going to have to be watching in the coming days. But overall, 3 to 5 inches or greater for South Louisiana, same for the Florida Panhandle, southwest Alabama, southern Mississippi as well. Notice offshore there's that 6 to 8 inch or greater range. That may begin to shift to the north with any growing confidence with where the tropical storm does end up tracking toward. So we could easily see some isolated spots over 10 inches of rainfall. Again, all depends on what happens with this tropical storm. So here's a look at the infrared satellite this morning of Tropical Storm Cristobal. Has max sustained winds currently at 60 miles per hour. It is on land as of right now, very, very slowly moving to the south-southeast at 3 miles per hour. And it's just going to, unfortunately, meander across the Yucatan Peninsula and just near Mexico and then near Central America, near Guatemala, which these areas have already seen over 2 feet of rain. They're expecting a bit more. It's expected just to kind of hang out over the next 24 to 48 hours. So there's the broad picture of it right now. As for the track, I'm going to stop it let me stop it a little later. There we go. Basically what you're seeing on the screen, it's expected to continue to move to the south-southeast, perhaps to the east before making that north turn. And it's going to weaken as it does so. With the land interaction, it's essentially just going to make it weaken, and it will likely become more broad. So a wider span of some rain that needs to eventually leave Mexico, unfortunately, because they again have already seen lots and lots of rainfall. That's going to take at least 24 to 48 hours before it begins its northward journey in the southern Gulf of Mexico. And as you can see, the latest track from the National Hurricane Center, they bring it into the southern Gulf away from the Yucatan Peninsula late on Friday, and then here we go. We'll keep it going forward in time. As for around Saturday morning, perhaps in the central Gulf of Mexico, as a tropical storm kind of getting its act together again, has that warm water, it can start to re-strengthen itself and kind of re-energize itself as well. And then going forward after that, it's going to continue to strengthen to around 65 miles per hour perhaps, which makes it a strong tropical storm. Notice the size of the cone of uncertainty, still very large. The track is all dependent on what happens over the next 24 to 48 hours in the Bay of Campeche and what happens overall. So that I'm going to stress. You'll hear me say it a lot because it's true. It's all dependent on what happens. And what I mean by that is, will it move more inland? How long is it going to take to get back to water? Because if it's on land longer, it's going to weaken further, and then eventually that may limit its overall intensity going forward, and it'll become more broad, and then it may wobble a little to the east. If it goes into the Gulf of Mexico sooner rather than later and begins that northward track toward the northern Gulf of Mexico and gets pulled up by a low, that is going to be something we're going to have to watch. Then it may be stronger and it may take a more westerly wobble or westerly track, or it may take its current path of what the National Hurricane Center is. Yes, Louisiana is in the center of the cone, but I really don't want you to focus on the center of the cone. In fact, if I can take out that line that you're seeing in the middle of the cone, I will, and I know I can do it, only just to kind of remind yourself not to focus on the center. As of now, what the cone essentially says is, where can the center of circulation go? And that is shown all the way from near Galveston, Texas, all the way to around Mobile Bay. And with this, and with storms in June, they tend to not be as organized. Yes, they have the potential to strengthen, of course. It is hurricane season and it's 2020. We know what it's capable of. We could easily see some intensification, but the axis of heavy rain may be well to the east. So that's why there's that big swath of heavy rainfall set for the northern Gulf Coast. And keep in mind, yes, it can wobble to the west, it can wobble to the east. Some of the model guidance has it wobbling a good bit. And we know with that being said, some of these storms are hard to figure out where they will make landfall. But as we get closer in time, it will be easier to say it's going to go here. This is what we'll see ultimately. But as I mentioned, next 24 to 48 hours will be crucial with the long-term impacts, long-term future of Cristobal. So it does bring the center of the cone potentially making landfall in South Louisiana sometime on Sunday, and it would likely be a strong tropical storm. And I've had questions, well, can it intensify into a hurricane? Sure, yes, it can. Maybe a minimal hurricane. And the difference between if it were 70 miles per hour versus 74 or greater, there's not going to be that big of a difference. It will be the same kind of impacts, except it will have that title in front of its name. So again, something we're going to be watching very carefully, and I've seen so many social media posts showing the spaghetti plots. We are very familiar with this, and we like to show it just to kind of give you an understanding of where it could potentially go. And keep in mind, these models are run several times a day, and you will continuously see these being posted. You may see some model runs of the GFS or European model floating around on Facebook that may scare you a little bit. Just make sure you check your sources, where you're getting it from. It can be outdated information, and keep in mind, don't focus on one model run before you share some things. So to walk you through this, the spaghetti models, the global models that we are looking at, notice some are leading toward more of a Texas-Louisiana state line landfall, some of which, and the bulk of them, are showing a north turn, then eventually a northwest turn toward perhaps near Vermilion Bay, some a little closer to New Orleans, closer to the mouth of the Mississippi River, some closer to Mobile Bay, and closer to the Florida Panhandle. That is why this cone of uncertainty is still so large, because the confidence is low beyond 3 days out. but they are agreeing that it should make that north turn back into the Gulf of Mexico sooner rather than later, than instead of hanging out over the Yucatan Peninsula, as you can see right there. But it's a waiting game at this point. I've also had questions, okay, will it rapidly intensify into something stronger? Well, this is wind shear. As we look at the Gulf of Mexico, when we're talking about severe weather, wind shear is what we need to help get some tornadic development. Whereas when it comes to the tropics, wind shear is not a good thing for the hurricanes. It's a good thing for us because then we know that it may get sheared and essentially it'll just rip them apart. Well, the latest global model, some of the model runs are showing some wind shear near the northern Gulf Coast this weekend, which may help it to further intensify or rapidly intensify. We're not really expecting that, and the models are showing either a strong tropical storm, maybe a minimal hurricane, but I'm not seeing anything pointing to anything stronger as of right now. But if that were to change, of course, you can count on us to keep you posted. And I know a lot of people are going to want to just see some of the models. This is the latest run of the GFS, or the American model, going forward in time, bringing some heavy rain, as you can see in the Florida Panhandle and then South Mississippi, Alabama. And if you see that closed circle, that would be your center of circulation, bringing that just south of New Orleans, south of the mouth of the Mississippi River, perhaps as a strong tropical storm, and then it starts to move to the northwest, kind of wobbles a good bit as well, closer to Vermilion Bay and then closer to Lake Charles, and then eventually it lifts to the north. But we'd still be dealing with some rain. Keep in mind that's just one model run. I will continuously say that. I will sound like a broken record. As for the European model, it's a little stronger, and we'll have a new run of the European later on today, but again, just one model. And going forward in time, notice the time on this as well, the time stamp. This brings it Sunday afternoon just to the east and southeast of Vermilion Bay, but then it brings it closer, just a little east of Vermilion Bay, closer to Terrebonne Parish and closer to the New Orleans viewing area, but then eventually still moving to the northwest. Either way, this would still put Baton Rouge on the worst side of the storm, the stronger side of the storm, and we would get heavy rain, some tropical storm force winds, perhaps some tornadoes, and then storm surge as well, coastal flooding. Those will all be potential threats, but keep in mind this is not what we are expecting. These are models. This is just showing what could potentially happen. And as we go forward in time, the confidence will grow. We still have plenty of time. This is a product from the National Hurricane Center. Give it a second to plot. It's pulling in data from, there you have it. This is from the National Hurricane Center showing most likely time of tropical storm force wind arrival. There's earliest reasonable time, just to kind of help folks maybe know when to start making preparations for some of these winds before they arrive. But this is the most likely time of tropical storm force wind. And then that outside, you see that big circle, that is the cone of uncertainty. So again, this can stretch all the way from Texas, the Texas coast, all the way to the Florida Panhandle. Most likely time of arrival for some tropical storm force winds in South Louisiana would be early Sunday morning. But keep in mind, this may change. This is likely going to change in the coming days. Again, past 3 days, forecast confidence is quite low, hence the size of the cone of uncertainty. But with the hurricane hunters flying through, and then the forecasters are working around the clock, we'll be able to fine-tune this forecast. The cone of uncertainty will get smaller and smaller. That means confidence will grow in the long term. So to kind of wrap up the weather headlines for you, we'll continue to track the tropics, and again, more time on land in Mexico will make it a little weaker. The less time on land would make it stronger. Again, something we're going to have to watch over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours, but it does appear as it will begin to make that lift to the north starting on Friday. And here along the Gulf Coast, whether you're in Texas or Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, or even Florida, I know I do have some Florida viewers still on my Facebook page. That could mean you could see impacts as early as Saturday into Tuesday morning. Again, timing can change, intensity, all of that. At this point, we just don't specifically know at this time who gets what, when you get what, and all of that. We'll be able to fine tune the forecast. But now is the time to prepare. It is hurricane season, likely going to be a very active season, and so that's why we are stressing that now. We'll have team coverage all week long leading up to this, and as we get to know more information, we'll be able to walk you through this day by day, hour by hour, and to help you get ready. If you want, since again it is hurricane season, clear out those gutters, clear out the storm drains in your neighborhood, anything like that, and wherever it does end up tracking toward, whether that's Texas, that would still put us on the east side of the storm. If it moves more to our east, then we would be on the better side of the storm, where we wouldn't get as much heavy rain or really even wind. But still, I would start bringing some of those things indoors that may fly. Keep in mind, it's not going to be just one storm that we would see that, oh, you would have perhaps your lawn chairs go flying. This would be consistent, perhaps tropical storm force wind gust, which would be over 39 miles per hour. And if it makes landfall around 65 miles per hour, you could see frequent gusts up to that. Again, all depending on where that center ultimately goes. But yeah, I'm going to bring my plants in later this week, and then especially as we get a little closer, we'll know a little more. But I'll show you the 7-day just to kind of show you the breakdown of what our days are going to look like. I know I've been focusing a lot on the tropics, trying to help you guys get ready, and just a heads up, because we take the tropics very seriously here. Of course, we have those low-lying areas that are prone to flooding. We get coastal flooding. Storm surge will likely be an issue. Rough surf, rip current risk. If you're taking a trip to the beach this weekend, not going to be ideal. Just a heads up there. You may want to put that off. But today we'll see showers and thunderstorms. It's going to be hot and humid. It already feels pretty nasty outside. It feels about 7 degrees warmer than it actually is. Same for Thursday and Friday, dodging showers and storms. Could see some strong storms. Winds begin to pick up, get a little breezy on Saturday, and then it's going to be windy Sunday and Monday. This is the current forecast on what the National Hurricane Center is saying. So our heaviest rain would come into play Sunday and into Monday. But remember, a lot can change between now and then. We'll keep you posted. Go ahead and download the free BR Proud app. You can find the latest on that. We'll push. You will send push notifications when we have new updates. You'll get weather alerts. I got my weather alert for the flash flood watch immediately as soon as the National Weather Service issued it. In fact, that was what let me know that they issued it, and my weather radio on my phone. And you can find the latest, whether that's any closings or anything like that. One of our reporters will be talking, or Governor John Bell Edwards will be talking a little later, of course, on COVID-19, and then on the hurricane or tropical storm, and then just hurricane season in general. So you can get the BR Proud app, which will give you the updates on coronavirus, all of that, because I know it's going to be a double battle with everything going on as well. So again, the latest on the from the National Hurricane Center on Tropical Storm Cristobal. I've had a lot of folks wonder how to say it. It's Cristobal, which of course is Spanish for Christopher. So that's why it's said like that. Going to make landfall somewhere, most likely along the northern Gulf Coast. And again, the next 24 to 48 hours will tell us much more of where it's going to go. We'll be able to pinpoint who gets what our conditions will be like here along the northern Gulf Coast, specifically Louisiana, all of that. And you can find the latest. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax will do another update for you this evening when she gets the latest from the National Hurricane Center a little later. And then we'll have team coverage all week long and into the weekend. We have reporters out in the field. We've got you covered on air and online. So in the meantime, we'll begin to wrap things up. If I have any more updates, I'll update brproud.com. You can find the latest, basically everything I've said, but shorter in summary, will be on brproud.com. I was just going into detail because, of course, as you know, on air, you only have a certain amount of time, so I can't go into detail and do the detailed analysis. But if you have any questions, type below on the Facebook Live. I'll go back and answer these questions for you. And then, yeah, go ahead and download the free BR Proud app.